So, good afternoon and welcome back. This is the second today of our TDevConf speaker interview series. My guest this time is Ms. Sarah Withee from Pittsburgh.
Yes, Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Okay. Whenever somebody says Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, I always get them mixed up. But it's like I know they're different sides of the state, but somebody says Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, I can't remember which one they say.
If it helps, I think most people don't know unless they've actually lived in Pennsylvania. So,
so we'll talk to Sarah more in just a minute. But first, I want to do a quick commercial and announcement for our sponsors, and I need to share my screen to do that. So let me get my. So TDevConf, if you go to our sponsors page, which is tdevconf.com/sponsors.html, you'll be able to see that we have sponsors currently: Microsoft, JetBrains, O'Reilly, and Result Group. These companies have either donated services that we're using to help make the conference more awesome. They're donating prizes that we will raffle off, and they are also swag, and as well as some have made contributions to charity. We have raised a little over $400 now, I believe it is, for Betsu Code. So definitely visit our sponsors and let them know how much you support and how much you appreciate their support of the conference. So Sarah, how are you? It's now afternoon. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. My cats have been a little rambunctious this morning, so I've had to kind of give them some love and attention. Hopefully they'll fall asleep soon, but doing pretty good.
Your cats always make interesting appearances on your stream.
Yeah, and the great thing is they're very human loving and super friendly. So, I think a lot of people have cats that hide under beds and stuff, and mine are always around me. They're usually within 20 feet of my body to some extent. So it's nice having friendly cats, but it also means, large cats are blocking keyboards and computers. And so I have to kind of work around the cat placement strategy.
So why don't you start off by giving us the 60 to 90-second elevator pitch about yourself?
Yeah. So I like to say my name is Sarah Withee. I'm a polyglot software engineer. So I say polyglot as in like multiple language using. I've also done a lot of hardware and robotics stuff in the past. I have done some international conference speaking. I've also keynoted some conferences and also mentor all-girls robotics competition team. So I like to kind of keep things sort of all over the place and just kind of love technology and love development and just try to incorporate it in several different ways. Speaking of cats.
So who's this?
This is Theodosius. He's my more larger cuddle buddy. Well, they're both large, but he's slightly bigger than his brother, who will probably show up here in a little bit. Hello.
Awesome. So how did you get started in all this? Like, what was your first computer? I know that you dealt with a number of different hardware devices. So what was your first computer?
Yeah. My very first, I guess, computer I've used was a Commodore 64. My parents had one when I was a kid, and I learned to type in commands into it, and it would perform the actions. And, just like thought this was like so cool. And so just, kind of learned more and more commands, read the manual back when there was like a 200-page manual that came with your computer, and
those days.
And typed in all the little programs and was making silly things like I could make a smiley face move around on my screen with the joystick and things like that. And so it just always fascinated me. We also had some Apple IIe's and 2GS's at elementary school, and so I learned to program those as well, and then eventually moved to QBasic on PCs and Visual Basic and C++ and Java and on and on and on.
Yeah, it's interesting. Most people have been from that Commodore 64. Some people have been from a little bit earlier, the TRS-80. I'm the TI-99 4A generation. So no, but I had a Commodore 64. Yeah, and I have very fond memories of getting my first floppy disk drive from that, and it was only single-sided. So I have very fond memories of very carefully, holding up a notch disc and
Yeah.
taking out the notch. So get that in so you can get both sides and and everything. Obviously, as a polyglot, you've also dealt with a number of tools. So, what code or text editor do you prefer?
I guess when I'm, it very much depends on context, I guess. So there's, if I'm doing rather simpler things, I'll usually throw open Visual Studio Code just because there's enough extensions for every programming language under the sun almost. For more complicated things, I try to use one of the IntelliJ suites. So I have several of those usually loaded on any computer at any given time. Yeah, those are usually the two main things.
So now you said that you deal with a lot with mentoring and such. So how would you explain your job to an elementary school student?
How would I explain what to a grade school student? Sorry.
Your job. You said you do a lot of mentoring and such. So how would you explain your job to say an elementary or high school, junior high school student, somebody just getting started or doesn't know a lot about technology?
Once upon a time, it meant having to do really big, elaborate explanations. I think now it's a little bit simpler just because kids have so much technology. They just grasp a little bit better. I guess depending on the age, I would say, are you familiar with like apps on your phone? Well, I help write all the instructions that make those things work. So they don't work magically on their own. There's actually a lot of people that think through how do we, the buttons to do on screen and what happens when you click those actions to make it perform something, take a picture, post online, all those. So I think through all of those instructions. And then I try to, if I'm diving into more like specifics of why that's important, I would usually give an example of how do you make a sandwich? Do you just pile a bunch of random ingredients like turkey, cheese, bread, mayonnaise? It's like, well, when you do it like that, it's not right. You don't hold the mayonnaise in the turkey for the sandwich, you hold the bread. So, there's a importance of instructions where, your bread has to be on the outside, but then your ingredients maybe don't matter on the inside. But, sometimes you want the mayonnaise against the bread and you don't spread it on the turkey itself. So, there's some things we have to think through with the steps of how we do things to make sure our programs and apps run things correctly. So
you just oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say that's usually how I try to explain things in a simple way.
You just brought back memories of being in grade school. And of course, I went to grade school in Texas, and we had the tests that you had to take like every 2 years or something. And part of it was there was an essay part of it, and there was a specific format that you always had to write in. And then the example they always used to practice was how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And but actually in some ways that was actually good preparation for the career that came into. Yeah. So this one, I haven't asked this question of everybody, but since you're a polyglot and like languages, let me ask. I will ask you. What's your least favorite programming language, and how would you improve it?
Oh gosh,
if possible.
Yeah. Usually I get asked my favorite programming language, and then I almost internally roll my eyes and say I don't have one. I think all of the languages I've used have really good purposes behind them. I think, they also have points that suck, so these people are just like, yeah, this is the best language ever. Your thing sucks. And I'm just like, no, not really. They all have good purposes. So I think when you told me this might be a question you would ask, I kind of struggled with it because I don't know that I also have a least favorite. I guess I would also say, typically I would just say, well, this is the one language I know that's what we should use for all tasks whatsoever, because I don't think that's the best solution. Right. Some are pretty flexible, like Python, for instance. You can kind of adapt it to almost whatever you need to do, but some are slightly less flexible, like C++ doesn't really make good web services, like you're probably building out really complex things for not really complex reasons, so I don't know that I have a specific about that.
Right. Fine. I mean, it's how about this? So you talked about Python, and you said that no,
Mm-hmm.
like you said no, or actually let's no. I'm not going to beat up on my beloved Python. And even as an avid Python developer, you know, I mean I completely agree with you. There's some things about Python that don't make a lot of sense to me, but and most of them have to do with PEP 8. But yeah, I am not an adherent of PEP 8 at all. But let's take C++. Name something in C++ that you would change.
The big things that come to my mind, I think, are some that I think they've already started to evolve in newer versions of C++. So I had learned, what was C++ 10, I think, whatever the 2010, 2012 kind of version was. I don't even remember at this point, but I know they released a new one in 2014. I think another one in 2018, and I think another one this year even. And so things like pointers are terrible. They're a pain in the butt, but they're very necessary. But you know, they implemented things like shared pointers where you don't have to manage that as much. Complicated data types. So you have data types that take generics, and those generics can sometimes also take other generics, and you end up with like this monstrous data type. And you can just now do auto in so many places, and it just kind of like you don't even have to not even know what it is. You don't even have to type it or anything like that. So, you know, I definitely see improvements like that for languages like PHP. A lot of people like bashing PHP, but I've also watched like all the things that suck from PHP 3 and 4, which are usually what people are complaining about when they complain, have gotten changed in 5 and 7. And especially in 7, they're, I feel like, making very good dramatic improvements. And I don't know, it's like I'm not super up to following all the latest standards, but I do kind of like hearing about the evolution of programming languages as well, and what people are spotting as problems and trying to fix. And even some drama things like Python 2 versus 3, where, you know, they've been trying to kill off 2 for a really long time and they haven't done it. And now that they finally killed it off, you know, people are like, oh, shoot, now what? And we still have code running in Python 2. And I don't know. There's
still code running in BB6. So,
yeah, you know,
there's still,
but it's kind of, yeah, just interesting to see the many dynamics of all this, and right. The many different sort of circles I kind of dabble in.
Right. Well, I mean, heck, if you're a good COBOL programmer, still you can name your price. I mean, so
yeah, pretty much. I have to admit, the last time I was looking for a job, I was kind of, especially when New Jersey and some other states piped in, like, oh my God, we're having problems with our COBOL database. I'm like, should I learn this real quick? Because I could go from jobless to like possibly rich very quickly. I did not.
The thing is, I'm not sure some of those jobs last very long, but you could probably make a year's salary in a couple of months. You know, is the thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So speaking, you're talking about job hunting. That's actually what you're going to be talking about at TDevConf, or rather, maintaining your mental and emotional health while job hunting. And I know that that's something that's quite relevant topic right now. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the idea came from 2017. I was sort of unhappy with my job, and I was looking for new jobs, but just it was eating at me. The more time went on, the more like I'm stuck in this job. It's making it hard to even get out and get to a new one. Like just the mental health was kind of eating at me. But also, as I needed to get out, it was making me feel like I was unable to really be a good developer anymore. So a lot of thoughts like, well, have I hit my peak? Like I used to be a good developer. Now I'm just not anymore. I'm done. My brain's done. I need to move to some other totally different related career. And, you know, it rained on me more as I was also interviewing for these developer jobs where sometimes, you know, I would have like 2 code interviews in a row, and the first one would be like, oh my gosh, you're brilliant. That was the perfect solution to this problem. And then I'd go into the next one like, oh my gosh, you're an idiot. Yeah, how could you possibly not understand this problem? And I'm like, you can't be brilliant and an idiot at the same time. There's a lot of structure to these job interviews, these coding interviews that help almost reinforce bad mental health kind of things, especially when you are trying to look for a job and you're probably not happy, whether you're unemployed or employed and you just need out. And so it took a lot of reflection for me to say, how do I know I'm still a good developer? How can I go into these interviews and rock them, even though my day job is kind of sucking and I'm doing really terrible at it? And I had heard somebody mention the 7 pillars of mental health, I think. And I'm like, what is this? And I go to look up, and it was very on point pretty much for this. The mental health is like, oh, let's go have spas and bubble baths and retail therapy and eat ice cream while watching movies with your girlfriends. And I'm just like, like that's not a permanent solution. That's like, it feels good once, but and so I kind of developed this talk off of these ideas of how do we actually, with real steps, go to not solve, but I guess dramatically try to improve our mental health, both while we're at a job that sucks, or we're unemployed, or we are in the middle of the process of interviewing.
Now, today, some of those steps that you were talking about might not be even possible. What have you noticed or advice that you could possibly add along those lines for the situation that we currently find ourselves in? Because some people, their job, it might not have, their job just might be gone because the company can't do business anymore. So, and there might be other companies who aren't hiring for that reason. So what could, do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, that's something. Some of them have been a few things I wanted to write into the talk anyway, because the talk is, when did I give it? Beginning of last year, I think. So definitely, had some changes I wanted to make over time, but, surprise, pandemic sort of throws everything very topsy-turvy. Right. And I was kind of looking also at just people in general, like what is burning people out. And I know Scott Hanselman very quickly said he had been working from home remotely for something like 13 years, I think, and said only now has he gotten to a point where working from home is really difficult. And I'm like, that really puts a spin on, just the world is affecting us. Like everything out there is affecting us even in here. And it's, even if you love your house and you love your family and you love your 2 giant cats, it's sometimes hard to just be stuck at home.
Mm-hmm.
And, I do think about there's, the digital burnout where you're staring at your screen all day long, both for your job and now for communications with your friends, communications with family, but also the conversion of in-person activities to digital activities is not the same. You can't treat them the same. And so you kind of almost have to rethink like some of these interactions. Because some people are just like, I don't like having my camera on screen, but having your camera on screen helps that connection of humanity too. Mm-hmm. But also then it almost spins the opposite direction of hurting you a little bit, because then you're just like, oh my gosh, I see myself on the screen. How do I look? Do I look terrible? Do I look sleepy? Do I need to do my hair? I don't know. And also just people don't know how to look, how to react, because, when you're in like a meeting, nobody's really staring at people's faces and seeing just the neutral, hi, I'm looking at you kind of face. And now digitally, we're almost constantly looking at everybody's neutral faces. So then they're self-conscious, like, oh crap, should I be smiling right now? Should not be smiling, and so we kind of have this like spinning out of control type of thing. And I also thought a lot about this when we got to Artifacts, which is a conference, mental health conference I was helping run among a few other people. And it had been a really great in-person event in 2018. And then 2020 hit, we're going to like, yeah, we're going to do this. It's going to be in August. It's going to be at the convention center. It's going to blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, this year hit and we said, well, crap, we can't possibly even pull this off the same. But then we started surveying a few people like, hi, did you come in 2018? Do you think we could recreate those great experiences virtually? And almost everybody said yes. So we actually had to sit down for quite a while and think, how do we make a hallway track that gets people to talk to each other correctly? How do we, hi buddy. How do we do the fun activities? How do we get people having those discussions about the mental health talks that we just had and still connect with others, not be overwhelmed? Like you can't throw 50 people into a Zoom and expect it just work. Like you could throw 50 people in a room and have it just work. And so there's a lot of these kinds of things. I haven't written them into the talk yet, but they're definitely like spinning around. And I know they're very important things we do need to think about, both for just daily life and for specifically job hunting.
Well, hopefully these things that are specific to our current situation won't be needed much longer. But even after, but even after things do, you know, I've said for a long time that even after we're allowed to go back to, you know, the Microsoft Office or the university or whatever, that we're still going to be doing user groups hybrid, because, you know, so these things are going to still continue to persist. But no, there's a number of things you're talking about taking the in-person. Well, it's not possible to take the in-person experience and replicate it virtual. But no, that's something that we've had a big struggle with here with TDevConf, even though we've never had a physical TDevConf. This is the first one. But no, looking for ways, you know, how do we make it so that it's just not passively looking at a screen all day? Because that burnout. We're very concerned about this thing. So there are different things that we're playing around with that we should probably make decisions on, because it's 2.5 weeks until the conference. But
maybe.
Yeah. But let's see here. We have a comment here from Space Shot in the chat that says, "I agree. Virtual or hybrid user groups are here to stay." And I think they're definitely going to be. I think they're definitely going to be a thing. In fact, Chad Green, who runs Codepalooza, that was just a couple weeks ago, which he took virtual and did a fine job with it. One thing he said, I don't know what TDevConf will look like. Not TDevConf, but Codepalooza will look like next year. But definitely part of it will be online. Now, you said you've had some experience with virtual conferences, didn't you?
Yeah. So I've been speaking and organizing conferences for 5 years at least. This year I did back out of speaking at a lot, but back in May I went to Bang Bang Con. So that was my first, I guess, totally virtual conference since the pandemic. And they did a lot of cool things there. But then Artifacts was middle of August, so about a month ago. And, you know, I helped organize that. And so experience with doing that. I also emceed that event. So that was fun. I was very much used to sort of guiding the event in physical person. And now here I am like, how do you guide an event that doesn't happen physically in person? And it's a little strange. And also when I did that, you know, I would watch the talks. I had kind of a notepad. I was scribbling some notes. I could kind of lead people out with some thoughtful ways to reflect on mental health things. But, you know, here it's a lot differently because I couldn't focus on the speaker. I had to focus on the Slack where we had people that could talk, plus the stream that was happening, plus possibly a few other things. And I had, I think, like 5 windows open across 3 monitors. And it was very kind of wild to just like, oh my gosh, this is very much information overload. But I kind of had to have these things.
Right.
And yeah, so I do have some experience. I don't say I'm an expert by any means. I know there's lots of good groups out there that are trying different experiments. And I think that's kind of what we have to do right now is keep trying to understand that there is some psychology that we may not get totally yet because we haven't had to force ourselves to do literally everything in home in our living rooms. But I think some of these experiments are going to turn out interesting results, both good and bad, on what we can do to, modify our workplaces, modify our events, meetups, everything.
Great. So you've told us about your what you do professionally and some about what you do in the community as well. But what do you do outside of work in tech?
Wrangle 2 cats. No, I'm kidding.
Outside of tech, I guess. But I mean, just outside of work, because a lot of what we do outside of work is tech still.
Yeah. I very much am a technology lover. I mean, it's kind of been ingrained in me. Like, it's a part of my heart, I feel like, since I was a little kid, that programming my Commodore. But I do try to dabble in a few other things. So I do mentor an all-girls robotics team. And even though there's a lot of technology there, there's a lot of teaching. So it's very much a twist on, good mentoring isn't here's how to do it, but it's what do you think we should do? All right, let's run with that. Do you think that was a good idea, a bad idea? How would you improve it? A lot of things like that. So it's kind of like a twist on thinking through things like that. I've been trying to get back into doing side projects again. I felt like many people, the pandemic sort of kicked my butt with my mental health. And so I'm getting some of that back, some of my energy, and kind of wanting to get back into doing projects I've had sitting around for a while, either in my mind or like this, 25% thing done in the corner of my room, and started working on those. And to that end, also decided I would start trying to Twitch stream, working on some of these things as sort of a guaranteed, like here's a few hours every week I'm dedicating to working on this thing, and maybe some people can watch and interact with me in the process. A couple of years ago, I did start soap making, which is very much feels like a strange twist on stuff I haven't really done before. So I'm not really like a super artsy person, I don't feel like, but it's kind of a cool thing between hey, I'm playing with a science chemistry lab, but also hey, I can mess with colors and scents and do swirl patterns in my soap. And hey, when I'm done, I get to wash my hands with it because, hey, it's a pandemic and that's an important thing we need to do anyway. I've given away so much soap. I've given away so much soap to my friends now. But it's cool. It's kind of a fun thing to play with. Just okay. A few odds and ends like that, I guess.
Okay, awesome. Well, let me do one more commercial announcement, and then we'll get your closing thoughts. So don't forget that you can see Sarah's talk and all the other great speakers that we have at TDevConf. That'll be Saturday, October 3rd, about 2.5 weeks away. Tickets are available at bit.ly/TDevConf 2020-tickets. They are free, so get them while they're hot. You can find us on the web at tdevconf.com and follow us on Twitter at TDevConf. Also, program note, this evening at 6 p.m. Here on twitch.tv/BinaryChef, 6 p.m. Central Time, Jeremy Clark is going to join us and going to discuss what he will be talking about at TDevConf, and also things like his first computer and what programming language he doesn't like, and things such as that. Sarah, leave us with some closing thoughts, please.
First of all, Jeremy's cool. He's one of my favorite people to run into conferences, and just there's some people you run into on a regular basis, and they're cool people, but Jeremy's one of my favorite people to just kind of run into and have really deep conversations, and I really love it. So definitely check him out if you can. And other thoughts, I guess. I don't know. It's just take care of yourself, wash your hands, wear a mask, but also step away from the computer, find something to do that, even for me, I very much love technology, but I have to just kind of hi, go take a break, quit working, go eat some food.
Well, you should do a soap making stream sometime.
I've thought about it. I'm about to move, so I've told myself like no soap until I get to the new place. But I have started thinking like, what would that look like? Like, how would I position cameras in my kitchen to do that kind of thing? Because I'm a nerd and I'm already thinking through things like that. But, it should be fun.
No, actually, what it is I've thought that software developers, we by nature approach a situation ready for battle with complexity. So, so I think that may just be a consequence. It may just be a consequence of the profession.
Possibly a little bit.
Right. All right. Well, Sarah, thank you very much for your time. My guest this afternoon has been Ms. Sarah Withee. Sarah, thank you very much. We'll see you at TDevConf. Looking forward to it.
Yep. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you.